The desert wind howled like a forgotten ghost across the cracked asphalt of Route 17, kicking up swirling clouds of red dust that stung the eyes and choked the throat. It was just past midnight when the old pickup truck rattled into view, its headlights cutting feeble beams through the darkness. Inside, a boy no older than 12 clutched the dashboard, his small face pale under the faint glow of the instrument panel. His father, a weathered man with calloused hands and eyes hollowed by too many sleepless nights, gripped the wheel tighter than necessary. They'd been driving for hours, fleeing some unspoken trouble back in the dusty towns of the southwest, debts maybe or worse. The boy, Elias, didn't know the details. He just knew the fear that hung in the air, like the smell of burning rubber. Suddenly, the truck sputtered, the engine coughing like a dying animal. It veered off the road, tires crunching over gravel until it came to a shuddering halt on the shoulder. Elias's heart pounded as his father cursed under his breath, popping the hood with a metallic clang that echoed into the night. "Stay put, kid," the man growled, stepping out into the chill. But Elias couldn't. He unbuckled and slipped from the cab, the cool air biting at his thin jacket. That's when he saw it. A lone figure astride a rumbling motorcycle, pulled over 100 yards ahead, its taillight a solitary red eye in the void. The rider was silhouetted against the starry sky, broad-shouldered and still, like a sentinel from another world. The man, let's call him Marcus, though names meant little out here, had been riding alone for years, ever since the war chewed him up and spat him out. Scars etched his arms like maps of battles long lost, and a faded tattoo on his forearm read, "Iron Oath," a promise inked in a dingy barracks to brothers who'd never come home. He'd drifted since, taking odd jobs, avoiding the pull of the old crew. But tonight, something in the wind whispered of unfinished business, a vow to protect the innocent that he'd buried deep. He dismounted, toolbox in hand, figuring the truck's breakdown was just another roadside mercy he couldn't ignore. Elias watched as the biker approached, his boots crunching steadily. The stranger's leather jacket creaked with each step, the faint scent of oil and exhaust trailing him. "Looks like you could use a hand," Marcus said, his voice gravelly but steady, like the low rumble of his Harley. The father eyed him warily but nodded, stepping aside as Marcus peered under the hood. Tools clinked in the quiet, wrenches turning, wires spliced with practiced ease. Elias hovered nearby, kicking at pebbles, his curiosity overriding the fear. The biker seemed different, not like the rough types his dad warned about. There was a quiet honor in his movements, a deliberate calm that spoke of holding back storms. As Marcus worked, Elias wandered closer to the motorcycle, its chrome frame gleaming faintly under the moon. He crouched down, peering under the seat, drawn by an odd glint that caught his eye, like sunlight on water but sharper, more urgent. His fingers brushed the edge of the leather, and there it was, a small, metallic device, wires tangled like veins, a red light blinking steadily. It wasn't a tool or a part. It pulsed with menace, humming faintly against the night's silence. Elias's breath caught. He'd seen enough movies, heard enough stories from his dad's late-night rants about those city crooks to know danger when it stared back. His eyes widened, heart slamming against his ribs. This wasn't right. This could end everything. "Dad!" Elias screamed, his voice piercing the dark like a gunshot. "Under the seat, it's gonna blow! Get away!" The words tumbled out in a frantic rush, raw with terror. His father spun, face draining of color, while Marcus froze, his hand midway to a bolt. Time stretched, the world narrowing to that blinking light. Marcus lunged, dropping his wrench with a clatter, his mind flashing to old promises, sworn in foxholes, to guard against the unseen threats that took lives without warning. He yanked Elias back, shielding the boy with his body as he assessed the device. Not a bomb from some enemy overseas, but something closer to home, a crude explosive, likely planted by whoever was chasing this family, meant to erase loose ends on this forsaken stretch of road. The father stumbled forward, grabbing Elias and pulling him toward the truck's far side. Marcus's hands moved with the precision of a man who diffused worse in darker places. He traced the wires, sweat beading on his brow despite the cold, the glint of the device mocking him. One wrong touch, and the night would erupt in fire, scattering metal and regret across the dunes. "Easy now," he muttered to himself, voice low and steady, drawing on that iron oath etched into his skin. The boy's scream had bought them seconds, precious time that could mean survival. With a deep breath, Marcus snipped the right wire, the red light flickering out like a snuffed candle. Silence fell, heavy and profound, broken only by the distant howl of coyotes. Elias trembled in his father's arms, tears streaking his dust-smeared cheeks. You saw it," the man stammered. Gratitude warring with shock, Marcus straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans, the weight of what almost happened settling like dust on his shoulders. "Kid's got sharp eyes," he said simply, glancing at Elias with a nod that carried more than words. A silent pact forged in the adrenaline's wake, but as the truck's engine roared back to life under his final tweaks, Marcus felt the old pull. This wasn't random. The device screamed of deeper rot, corruption chasing the innocent. He'd walked away from his crew once, after the losses that scarred him, but tonight the promise stirred. To protect, to stand. What if this was the call he'd ignored too long? They parted ways under the paling stars, the truck's taillights fading into the horizon. Marcus fired up his Harley, the engine's growl a thunderous vow. He rode south, toward the faint lights of a nowhere town, but his mind raced ahead, to old allies, to the iron promise brotherhood scattered like embers. Elias's scream echoed in his ears, a spark that could reignite a fire. Little did he know, this roadside salvation was just the beginning, pulling him into a web of shadows where loyalty would be tested, and an ancient oath would demand everything. If you've ever felt the weight of a promise that time couldn't erase, hold on to that. Because in the quiet hours, when the road calls, it's those bonds that light the way forward. The first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson as Marcus rolled into the outskirts of Eldridge Hollow, a forgotten speck on the map where motels sagged under neon signs and diners served coffee black as midnight. His bike purred to a stop outside the Rusty Spur, a dive bar that doubled as neutral ground for wanderers like him. The air smelled of stale smoke and frying bacon, mingling with the ever-present tang of gasoline that clung to his clothes. He killed the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the ache in his knuckles from the night's close call. Inside, the bar was dimly lit, a few early risers nursing hangovers at scarred wooden tables. Marcus slid onto a stool, ordering black coffee from a waitress with tired eyes. Her name tag read Lila, though she didn't offer it. As he sipped, the steam rising like ghosts, his thoughts drifted to Elias. The boy's face, wide-eyed and brave, mirrored fragments of his own youth before the world hardened him. That glinting device under his seat, it wasn't chance. Someone had targeted him, or worse, the family he'd helped. Paranoia? Maybe. But Marcus knew better. The scars on his soul whispered of enemies who played long games. A shadow fell across the counter. "Haven't seen you in these parts for years, Hawk." The voice was rough, familiar, like gravel under tires. Marcus looked up to see Tommy, an old crewmate from the Iron Promise days, his beard streaked with grey, a patch on his vest proclaiming his allegiance. They'd ridden together once, brothers in leather and loyalty, until the losses fractured them. Tommy's eyes narrowed, taking in the fresh tension in Marcus's jaw. "You look like trouble found you again." Marcus set down his mug, the ceramic clinking softly. "Trouble's got a way of riding shotgun." He recounted the night, the breakdown, the boy, the scream that halted disaster. Tommy listened, his face darkening with each word. Planted? By who? Cartel runners? Or those Fed types sniffing around old ops? The questions hung heavy, stirring memories of missions gone wrong, promises made to fallen comrades to keep the innocent safe. By noon, word had spread through back channels. Marcus's phone buzzed with texts from ghosts of the past, riders he'd thought lost to time. Heard about the spark. We ride. One from Jax, a wiry vet with a laugh like thunder. Another from Lena, the cruise medic, her message sharp. Oath calls. Where? The Iron Promise wasn't just ink. It was blood and vow. A family chosen in the fires of war and road. Marcus stared at the screen, the glint from last night flashing in his mind. Elias's scream had stopped one explosion, but it ignited something larger, a chain reaction of loyalty that could burn through corruption's veil. He stepped outside, the sun beating down on the parched earth, casting long shadows from the bikes lining the lot. Tommy clapped his shoulder. You in or you running again? Marcus mounted his Harley, the leather seat warm under him. The engine roared to life, a beast awakening. I'm in, he said, the words tasting like redemption. As they peeled out, dust billowing in their wake, Marcus felt the old fire. The road ahead twisted with secrets, signs of aggression trailing the family, whispers of a crooked sheriff's hand in the shadows. But for the first time in years, he wasn't alone. The promise lived, pulling them toward justice 1 mile at a time. The sun climbed higher, turning the asphalt into a shimmering ribbon that snaked through the scrubland, flanked by jagged rocks that clawed at the sky. Marcus led the way on his Harley, the engine's deep thrum vibrating through his bones like a heartbeat long dormant. Tommy rode shotgun on his battered chopper, the 2 bikes cutting a path toward the old rendezvous point, a weathered barn on the edge of Eldridge Hollow, where the Iron Promise crew had once gathered under starlit skies to swear oaths that time couldn't erode. Dust trailed them like a veil, the scent of heated metal and parched earth filling Marcus's lungs with every breath. As they pulled up, the barn loomed, its red paint peeled back to reveal grey wood scarred by wind and neglect. A few bikes were already there, chrome glinting under the relentless light, Jax's low-slung cruiser with its custom flames, and Lena's sleek ride. Practical and unyielding like her, Jax dismounted first, his wiry frame unfolding with a grin that split his weathered face, but his eyes held the sharp edge of a man who'd seen too many sunrises over graves. "Hawk!" he called, using the road name that stuck from their service days, clapping Marcus on the back with a force that jarred loose years of solitude. Lena approached slower, her ponytail swinging, medic's kit slung over one shoulder. She nodded, her gaze assessing as if reading the fresh shadows under his eyes. They gathered in the barn's dim interior, shafts of sunlight piercing the gaps in the walls like spotlights on a stage. Hay bales served as seats, the air thick with the musty tang of old timber and faint traces of motor oil. Marcus leaned against a post, recounting the night's events again, the sputtering truck, Elias's wide-eyed terror, the glint that nearly ended it all. He described the device without dwelling on its cruel intent, just the wires and the blink that screamed threat. "Planted clean," he said, voice low. "Meant for the road or whoever crossed it. That family. They're running from something rotten." Tommy crossed his arms, his beard twitching as he chewed on the words. "Sounds like Harlan's crew, that sheriff up in Dust Creek, crooked as a dog's hind leg. Word is, he's shaking down folks for protection money, worse if they push back. Your boy and his dad might have crossed him without knowing." Jax spat into the dirt, his laugh bitter. "Harlan? The one who turned state's evidence on our old runs? Oath or no, he's poison." Lena's fingers drummed on her kit, her expression tightening. She'd patched more than wounds in their circle. souls fractured by betrayals that cut deeper than blades. If it's him, it's not just greed. There's a pattern. Families vanishing, whispers of aggression left behind. We ride blind, we join them. The group fell into a charged silence, the kind that hummed with unspoken histories. Marcus's mind flashed to the foxhole where the iron promise was born. A circle of soldiers, hands clasped over a flickering lantern, vowing to shield the vulnerable long after the guns fell quiet. He'd walked away after the losses, the ghosts too heavy, but Elias's scream had cracked that wall. Now, with these faces around him, the oath felt alive again, a tether pulling them from isolation. "We find the family first," Marcus decided, his tone steady as forged steel. "Make sure they're clear. Then we trace the rot back to its root." By afternoon, they were on the move, a small convoy weaving through backroads that dodged the main highways. The wind whipped at their jackets, carrying the faint howl of distant semis like warnings from the horizon. Jack scouted ahead on his bike, radio crackling with updates, empty motels, no sign of the pickup. Lena rode beside Marcus, her voice cutting through the roar. "You carrying that weight alone too long, Hawk. The promise isn't a solo ride." He glanced at her, the scars on his knuckles whitening as he gripped the handlebars. "Thought I was done. But that kid." He saw through the dark, reminded me why we started. They hit pay dirt at a roadside gas station, the pumps rusted under a sagging canopy that fluttered in the breeze. The attendant, a grizzled man with oil-stained hands, eyed their bikes warily but pointed them toward a nearby trailer park when Marcus described the truck. "Saw 'em pull in last night. Skittish as deer. Boy was quiet. Dad looked haunted. The park was a maze of weathered homes on cinder blocks, laundry lines snapping like flags in the gusts. They found the pickup tucked behind a chain-link fence, its hood still warm from recent use. Elias was outside, tossing a ragged ball against the trailer wall, his small frame tense until he spotted Marcus. Recognition lit his face, a spark of trust amid the fear. The father, Elias called him Ray, emerged from the door, his posture guarded, but he waved them in. Inside, the trailer smelled of instant coffee and worry, the space cramped with faded photos pinned to corkboard. Ray poured mugs from a dented pot, his hands shaking slightly. "You saved us back there. Didn't expect company." He spoke in fragments, revealing just enough. Debts from a bad deal in Dust Creek, Harlan's deputies leaning hard, signs of pursuit that escalated to that planted menace. "They want us gone. Permanent." Elias huddled close, his eyes flicking to Marcus. "You fixed it, like a hero from the stories." Lena knelt to Elias's level, her voice soft, checking him over with a gentle touch. No marks, but the shadows in his gaze spoke volumes. Jax and Tommy stepped outside to watch the perimeter, their presence a silent shield. Marcus sat across from Ray, the weight of the oath settling deeper. "You're not facing it alone now. We've got your back. Old promise, new fight." Ray's eyes misted, a nod sealing the pact. But as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the trailer, a distant engine growl pierced the air, headlights approaching, too deliberate to be chance. Marcus rose, hand instinctively to his side, the glint from last night echoing in his mind. The crew moved as one, a family forged in motion, ready to stand against the encroaching dark. The road had called them back, and this time they wouldn't turn away. Justice wasn't a distant thunder. It was the rumble building beneath their feet, promising redemption in the miles ahead. The gravel crunched under the tires of the approaching vehicles, a low growl that sliced through the evening hush like a predator's warning. Marcus stepped onto the trailer's narrow porch, his boots thudding softly against the warped wood, the fading light casting elongated shadows that danced with the wind-whipped clothesline. The air carried the sharp bite of exhaust, mingled with the earthy scent of impending rain, heavy clouds gathering on the horizon like unspoken threats. He scanned the maze of the trailer park, spotting two black sedans creeping along the central path, their headlights cutting harsh beams through the dusk. No markings, but the deliberate slowness screamed intent, Harlan's deputies, or worse, the shadows they answered to. Inside, Ray froze mid-sip, his mug hovering near his lips, coffee sloshing faintly. Elias pressed against his side, the boy's small hand clutching his father's shirt, eyes wide with the echo of last night's terror. Lena moved to the window, her medic's instincts kicking in as she peered through the gauzy curtain, her breath steady despite the tension coiling in her shoulders. 2 cars, 4, maybe 5 men, armed but not flashing badges. Jax and Tommy flanked the door, their postures shifting to quiet readiness, hands loose but alert, the weight of old oaths making them a wall of unyielding loyalty. Marcus turned to Ray, his voice a low rumble, steady as the engine he'd just silenced. "How bad is it with Harlan?" Ray swallowed hard, setting the mug down with a clink that amplified in the cramped space. "Bad enough they planted that thing to silence us. I borrowed from the wrong lender, tied to his protection racket, said no, and now they're closing in." The words hung heavy, laced with the regret of a man who'd chosen family over fear, only to drag them into the storm. Elias looked up at Marcus, his voice a whisper cutting through the adult's gravity. "You won't let them take us, right? Like you stopped the bad light?" The promise in the boy's eyes hit Marcus like a gut punch, stirring the ink on his arm. The iron oath, a vow to stand for the voiceless, born in the grit of foxholes where brothers fell, but the word endured. He'd buried it under years of solo miles, but here, in this sagging trailer with its faded dreams pinned to the walls, it resurfaced like dawn breaking over dunes. "We won't," Marcus said, meeting Elias's gaze, the words sealing a bond deeper than blood. He nodded to the crew. "Jax, Tommy, flank the sides. Lena, get them ready to move if it goes south." The sedans halted 20 yards out, doors creaking open with metallic sighs. 4 men emerged, broad-shouldered in dark jackets, faces hardened by the kind of work that left moral scars. The lead one, a stocky figure with a sheriff's star glinting falsely on his chest, stepped forward, his boots kicking up dust that swirled in the breeze. "Ray Tanner," he called, voice oily and authoritative, carrying over the quiet like a judge's gavel. "Time to settle up. Harlan's patient, but debts like yours. They compound." His eyes flicked to the bikes, then to Marcus and the others, a smirk twisting his features. "And who's the welcoming committee, out-of-towners playing hero?" Tommy stepped into view, his grey-streaked beard catching the last light, arms crossed over his vest like a barrier. "Just friends of the road, deputy. Saw trouble, figured we'd lend a hand." The man's laugh was short, bark-like, devoid of warmth. "This ain't your road. Harlan runs Dust Creek and beyond. You interfere, you join the list." Jack circled wide from the shadows, his wiry form a ghost among the trailers. Radio clipped to his belt, buzzing faintly with a silent check-in. Lena stayed inside, guiding Ray and Elias toward the back door, her hand on the boy's shoulder a quiet anchor. "Breathe easy, kid. We've got stories better than this one ending bad." Marcus held the porch, his stance unyielding, the wind tugging at his jacket as if urging retreat. But retreat wasn't in the oath. "We're not here for your lists," he said, voice even, carrying the weight of battles where words diffused more than bullets. "That device on my bike? That's not protection. It's a threat to innocence. Walk away, and maybe Harlan hears about fair play." The deputy's eyes narrowed, hand drifting toward his hip, the glint of metal catching the light, a reminder of the line they towed. Tension thickened the air, electric as a storm's edge, the distant rumble of thunder underscoring the standoff. One of the men shifted, impatience cracking his facade. "Boss said bring 'em in quiet, or not." He lunged toward the trailer, but Jax was faster, emerging from the side with a low growl, blocking the path with his bulk. Not tonight. But the scuffle erupted in bursts, fists glancing off leather, grunts echoing against the metal homes, but it stayed contained, a dance of restraint born from the crew's code. No guns drawn, no blood spilled, just enough force to push back, to show the cost of pressing further. Marcus moved like a shadow, disarming the lead with a precise twist, the deputy's weapon clattering to the gravel. "Tell Harlan the iron promise rides again, for the ones who can't." The men retreated, piling into their sedans with curses muttered under breaths, engines roaring to life as they peeled away, tail lights fading into the twilight like retreating spectres. The trailer park exhaled, the wind carrying away the tension, leaving only the patter of the first raindrops on the roof. Ray slumped against the wall, Elias clinging to him, relief washing over their faces like the downpour building. Lena checked them over, her touch gentle, confirming no fresh signs of harm. "They're shaken but whole," she said, her eyes meeting Marcus's with a nod of shared resolve. As the rain intensified, drumming a rhythmic tattoo on the tin roof, the crew gathered under the canopy, water beading on their jackets like unshed tears. Tommy wiped his brow, the adrenaline fading into the quiet satisfaction of a line held. "That buys time, but Harlan won't forget." Jax chuckled softly, the sound a release. "Good. Let him stew. We've got the road on our side." Marcus looked out at the storm-lashed park, the promise thrumming in his veins, a legacy of sacrifice, of chosen kin standing against corruption's tide. Elias approached, rain-slicked and brave, offering a small smile. "Thanks for the stories coming true." The night deepened, the crew plotting next moves by flashlights' glow, trails to evade, allies to call, the rot at Harlan's core to unearth. Marcus felt the pull stronger now, the boy's trust a mirror to his own redemption, pulling him from solitude into the fray. The Iron Oath wasn't just words, it was the rumble of engines in the rain, the loyalty that turned strangers into shields. As lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the path ahead, Marcus knew the miles would test them, but the bond held firm. Justice not in vengeance, but in the quiet honor of standing true. The road whispered of trials yet to come, but for now, in the storm's embrace, they were unbreakable. The rain hammered down in relentless sheets, turning the trailer park's gravel paths into muddy rivers that snaked between the sagging homes. Marcus stood under the overhang, water dripping from the brim of his hat like tears from a stone face, the metallic tang of ozone mixing with the earthy musk of soaked soil. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the crew's faces in stark flashes, Jax's grin etched with determination, Tommy's brow furrowed in quiet calculation, Lena's eyes sharp as she bandaged a minor scrape on Ray's knuckles from the scuffle. Elias huddled inside the trailer door, peeking out with wide eyes, the storm's roar a symphony to his newfound sense of safety. Ray leaned against the doorframe, his shirt clinging damply to his frame, exhaustion carving deeper lines into his weathered skin. "You all, you're risking everything for strangers. Why?" His voice was rough, laced with the gratitude of a man who'd long carried his burdens alone. Marcus met his gaze, the rain's patter a steady underscore to the moment. "Not strangers anymore. That oath we carry, it's for nights like this. When the shadows close in, you stand or you break." The words hung in the air, simple yet profound, echoing the vow inked into his skin, a promise forged in the chaos of war that demanded loyalty beyond blood. Lena stepped forward, her boots squelching in the mud, handing Ray a towel from her kit. "First, we get you and the boy clear. Harlan's men will circle back, and we need eyes on the road." She glanced at Elias, offering a reassuring smile that softened her medic's edge. "You've got a guardian now, kid. More than one." Elias nodded, clutching a worn, stuffed bear, its fur matted from the damp. The boy's trust was a fragile flame, kindled by Marcus's steady presence, reminding the biker of his own lost innocence, shattered in distant sands where promises were the only anchors. They moved quickly, the crew's efficiency a well-oiled rhythm born of shared trials. Jax hot-wired the pickup's ignition with a few deft twists, nothing fancy, just enough to ensure it wouldn't stall under pressure, while Tommy scouted the perimeter, his flashlight beam cutting through the downpour like a blade. "Clear for now," he reported, water streaming down his beard, "but that thunder's covering any tails they might send." Marcus helped Elias into the truck's cab, the boy's small hand gripping his sleeve, a silent plea that tugged at the scars on his heart. Ray slid behind the wheel, the engine coughing to life with a throaty growl, headlights piercing the veil of rain like defiant eyes. The convoy formed under the storm's fury, Marcus's Harley leading, flanked by Jax and Tommy on their bikes, Lena trailing in a borrowed van loaded with supplies. Ray's truck brought up the rear, its wipers slapping rhythmically against the deluge. They cut through backroads, avoiding the lit highways where Harlan's reach extended like invisible chains. The asphalt gleamed slick and treacherous, puddles reflecting the occasional lightning strike, turning the journey into a gauntlet of shadows and speed. Marcus's mind raced ahead, piecing together the fragments, the planted device, Harlan's racket, the families vanishing into whispers. It wasn't just greed, it was a systematic erosion of the innocent, corruption festering like rot in the desert's underbelly. Hours blurred into a tense vigil, the storm easing to a misty drizzle as they neared the outskirts of a forgotten crossroads called Willow Bend. An old safe house waited there, an abandoned ranger station tucked into the hills, its wooden walls weathered but sturdy, a relic from the Iron Promise's early days. The bike's engines rumbled low as they pulled up, tires crunching over pine needles that carpeted the gravel lot. The air here was cooler, scented with wet pine and wild sage, a brief respite from the flatlands dust. Marcus killed his engine first, the sudden quiet amplifying the drip of water from the eaves. Inside, the station smelled of aged timber and faint mothballs, a single lantern casting golden pools of light across the room. Ray and Elias settled on a threadbare couch, the boy finally dozing against his father's shoulder, exhaustion claiming him like a merciful tide. Lena brewed coffee on a portable stove, the aroma grounding the group as they huddled around a scarred table. Maps unfurled, marked with hasty notes, Harlan's office in Dust Creek, the deputy's usual patrols, whispers of a larger network tied to city suits who turned blind eyes for a cut. "We hit the source," Jack said, tracing a route with his finger, his voice a low drawl edged with fire. "Expose the ledger, the threats. No guns blazing, just truth, cutting through the lies." Tommy nodded, but his eyes held a shadow of doubt, the weight of past betrayals pressing in. "Harlan's got pull. One wrong move, and we're the outlaws in their story. Remember what happened to Ruiz?" The name evoked ghosts. Another brother lost to the system's jaws, a raid gone sour because of a tip from within. Marcus leaned back, the chair creaking under him, his fingers drumming the table's edge. The dilemma gnawed: charge in with righteous fury, or peel back the layers with precision, honoring the oath's call for justice without becoming the monsters they fought. Elias's scream from the night before echoed in his thoughts, a reminder that innocence hung in the balance. Lena broke the silence, her tone measured, like a surgeon's incision. "We start small, infiltrate the edges, talk to the shaken-down folks, gather proof. Harlan's arrogance is his blind spot." Her words carried the wisdom of one who'd mended more than bodies, seeing redemption not in spectacle, but in the quiet unraveling of deceit. Ray stirred, adding his piece. There's a bar in Dust Creek, the Broken Spur. Harlan's deputies drink there, boast. I overheard enough to know it's the vein. The plan took shape, a web of risks and resolves, the crew's bond tightening like leather under strain. As midnight approached, Marcus stepped outside, the mist curling around his ankles like spectral fingers. The hills loomed dark and watchful, stars peeking through thinning clouds. He thought of the Iron Promise's genesis, a circle of survivors, vowing to be the shield no one else would wield. Walking away had been his escape, but Elias's bravery had dragged him back, a redemption he couldn't refuse. The road ahead promised trials, moral crossroads where loyalty clashed with consequence, where standing firm meant sacrificing the easy path. Jax joined him, lighting a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his scarred cheek. Feels like old times, Hawk, but heavier. Marcus nodded, the night air cool against his skin. Heavier means it matters, for the kid, for all of them. They shared a look, brothers in the vow, the rumble of distant engines a faint warning on the wind. Harlan's web tightened, but so did their circle, chosen family, unyielding against the storm. If this story's gripping you like a midnight ride, hit that like button to fuel the next twist. Your support keeps these tales rolling. The mist clung to the hills like a shroud as dawn crept over Willow Bend, painting the ranger station's eaves in soft grays and silvers. Marcus pushed open the creaky door, the hinges protesting with a low groan that blended into the awakening chorus of birdsong and dripping leaves. The air was crisp, laced with the clean bite of pine resin and the faint, lingering petrichor from the night's storm. He stepped onto the gravel lot, boots crunching softly, his breath visible in the chill as he scanned the tree line. The convoy's vehicles huddled together like sentinels, bikes shrouded in dew-kissed tops, the pickup's hood still bearing faint mud streaks from the frantic escape. Sleep had come in fits, haunted by the glint of that device and Elias's piercing scream, a sound that now anchored him to this fight. Inside, the group stirred, the lantern's glow dimming as morning light filtered through cracked windows. Lena was already up, her movements precise as she packed her kit, the zippers rasp a quiet rhythm. Elias sat cross-legged on the floor, nibbling a granola bar, his eyes brighter than the night before, though shadows of worry lingered in their depths. Ray hovered nearby, folding a map with hands that still trembled slightly, the weight of gratitude and fear etching new lines on his face. "We owe you more than words," he said, voice gravelly from disuse, meeting Marcus's gaze with a nod that spoke of reluctant trust forged in fire. Tommy emerged from the back room, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his grey beard tousled. "Plan holds? Dust Creek by midday?" Jax followed, stretching his wiry frame with a crack of joints, the scent of strong coffee trailing him from the stove. "Yeah, but we go light. No thunder, ghosts on the wind." The crew gathered around the table, the scarred wood a canvas for their strategy, pencils scratching faint lines on paper that mimicked the twisting backroads. Harlan's domain loomed in their minds. Dust Creek, a sun-baked town where the sheriff's influence seeped into every cracked sidewalk and shadowed alley. His racket preying on the desperate with threats veiled as law. The Broken Spur bar was their entry point, a dimly lit hive where deputies loosened tongues over whiskey. Boasting of collections and consequences, Marcus traced the route with a calloused finger, the paper crinkling under his touch. We split. Lena and I blend in at the bar, ears open. Jax, Tommy, you and Ray watch the edges, eyes on patrols. Elias stays here, safe. The boy looked up, protest flickering in his eyes, but Lena knelt beside him, her voice a gentle anchor. "You're the spark that started this, kid. Rest now, heroes recharge." Elias nodded slowly, clutching his bear tighter, the stuffed toy a talisman against the unknown. The oath pulsed in Marcus's veins, the iron promise, a silent code to shield the vulnerable. born from foxholes where survival meant more than flesh. It meant holding to honor when the world crumbled. They rolled out under a sky clearing to azure, the engine's low purrs muffled to avoid echoing through the hills. Marcus rode point on his Harley, the wind whispering through his jacket like old confidants, carrying the faint chill of elevation down into the warmer valleys. Lena flanked him on her bike, her ponytail whipping like a banner, while Jax and Tommy brought up the rear with Ray's truck trailing discreetly. The road wound through scrubland dotted with Joshua trees, their twisted limbs reaching like skeletal hands, the sun climbing to bake the earth into shimmering waves of heat. Marcus's thoughts drifted to the war's aftermath, the brothers lost, the vows whispered over graves that pulled him into isolation. Elias's discovery had shattered that shell, reminding him that redemption wasn't a solitary ride. It was the chain of loyalty linking the broken. Dust Creek appeared like a mirage by noon, its main street a dusty vein flanked by faded storefronts and a courthouse that squatted like a judgmental elder. They parked the bikes in a shaded lot behind a derelict garage, the air thick with the sizzle of sun on metal and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. The broken spur sat at the street's end, its swinging doors scarred from years of rough welcomes, neon sign buzzing faintly even in daylight. Marcus and Lena dismounted, blending into the sparse foot traffic, him in a worn flannel over his vest to dull the biker edge, her in jeans and a simple blouse that hid the medic's resolve. Eyes sharp, words few, Marcus murmured, the doors creak swallowing his voice as they stepped inside. The bar was a cavern of dim amber light, the scent of stale beer and polished oak hanging heavy, ceiling fans stirring the air lazily. A jukebox hummed a forgotten country tune, its melody underscoring the murmur of patrons, locals nursing lunches, a couple of deputies at the far end, their badges glinting like false stars. Marcus slid onto a stool, ordering a soda to keep his senses clear, while Lena claimed a booth nearby, flipping through a dog-eared menu with feigned interest. The bartender, a wiry man with tattooed arms, eyed them curiously but said nothing, pouring with practiced indifference. Conversation drifted like smoke. One deputy, broad and red-faced, leaned back with a laugh that boomed. "Harlan's got the ledgers tight. Another family folded last week. Paid up or vanished, don't matter." His partner nodded, swirling his glass, voice dropping. "That Tanner fool thought he could run. We fixed that spark on the road. Next one's permanent." DeMarcus's grip tightened on his bottle, the cool glass grounding the surge of anger, the echo of Elias's scream fueling a moral fire. Lena caught his eye across the room, her nod subtle, a signal that the rot ran deep, threads of aggression tying Harlan to a web of silence bought with fear. They lingered, piecing whispers, names of vanished families, drop points for protection cash, a ledger hidden in the courthouse basement. No overt violence marred the scene, just the undercurrent of corruption, a poison seeping into the town's soul. As the sun slanted lower, casting long shadows through the grimy windows, Marcus felt the oath's weight, a call to unearth truth without descending into the darkness they opposed. They slipped out undetected, rejoining the others in the garage's shade, the air now humming with purpose. Back on the road, the convoy pushed toward a secondary hideout, the engine's rhythm a steady vow. Jax radioed ahead, his voice crackling. "Got a lead. Old contact in town owes us. Says the ledger's real but guarded." Tommy grunted agreement, the wind whipping his beard. Ray, from the truck, added through the static, "Makes it right for Elias, for all of us." Marcus accelerated, the horizon blurring into promise, the glint from that fateful night now a beacon. Harlan's empire teetered on exposure, but the path demanded precision, loyalty's blade cutting through deceit, redemption earned in the quiet stand against the storm. The miles unfolded, testing their bond, as justice's rumble grew louder, drawing them inexorably toward the heart of the shadow. The sun dipped low over the jagged hills, framing the secondary hideout. a derelict cabin perched on the edge of a dry ravine where the wind whispered through skeletal mesquite branches like secrets too heavy to hold. Marcus eased his Harley to a stop, the engine's fading rumbles swallowed by the vast quiet, dust settling on his boots in fine red clouds. The air carried the sharp tang of sagebrush and cooling earth, mingled with the faint, acrid bite of engine oil that never quite left his skin. He dismounted, joints protesting from the day's miles, his shadow stretching long across the cracked porch like a harbinger of the gathering dusk. Inside the cabin, the crew unpacked under the flicker of a kerosene lamp, its yellow glow dancing across walls papered in faded newsprint, casting faces in warm, wavering light. Jack spread the map on a rickety table, his finger jabbing at scribbled notes, the paper crinkling like brittle leaves. Contact's name is Silas, old-timer who ran Harlan's books before he wised up. Says the ledger's in a safe behind the sheriff's desk, coded but damning. Names, dates, payoffs that tie the vanishings to aggression no badge can hide. Tommy paced the creaking floorboards, his boots thudding softly, beard twitching with the itch of unfinished business. Silas, reliable. Last I heard, he bolted after a close call, left his own kin in the dust. Lena knelt by a cooler, distributing water bottles beaded with condensation, her movements deliberate, eyes scanning the group for unseen strains. He's scared, but straight. Patched him up once after a beating that left echoes. If anyone's cracking Harlan's shell, it's him. Ray sat in the corner, Elias curled against him on a threadbare blanket, the boys breathing even in sleep, a small mercy amid the storm's eye. Ray's face, etched with the lines of a father pushed to breaking, softened as he watched his son. This ledger, it proves what they did to folks like us, not just debts, lives twisted till they snap. His voice was a low murmur, gratitude threading through the weariness, binding him to this circle of strangers turned shields. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his vest, the iron oath tattoo peeking from his sleeve like a reminder etched in fire. The day's whispers from the broken spur replayed in his mind, the deputy's casual boasts, the glint of malice in their eyes, echoing the device's cold blink under his seat. Elias's scream had ignited this, pulling him from the solitary road where he'd buried his ghosts. Now the promise thrummed alive, a moral compass in a world veering toward shadows. "We move at midnight," he said, voice steady as forged iron. "In and out. Silas creates the diversion. We grab the proof. No noise, no blood. Justice comes clean or not at all." The hours stretched, tension coiling like a spring in the dim room. Jax tinkered with a small radio, static crackling faintly as he tuned to local frequencies. The air humming with intercepted chatter. Harlan's patrols tightening loops around the outskirts, engines growling in the distance like watchful beasts. Tommy shared stories by lamplight, his gravelly tone weaving tales of the crew's early rides. A midnight rescue of a stranded vet, oaths renewed under starlit skies, the quiet honor that bound them when blood ties frayed. Elias stirred once, blinking awake to listen, his small face alight with wonder. "You all, like knights on bikes." Lena chuckled softly, ruffling his hair. "Something like that, kid. Knights who keep promises." As midnight cloaked the ravine in velvet black, they slipped out, the convoy a whisper of shadows. Marcus led on his bike, the headlight dimmed to a slit, navigating the winding trail where gravel whispered under tires. The scent of night-blooming cacti cut the cool air, sharp and sweet, a fleeting beauty against the peril ahead. Dust Creek slept uneasily below, its lights scattered like wary eyes, the courthouse a squat silhouette at the town's heart. They stashed the vehicles in an overgrown alley behind a shuttered feed store, the metal frames cooling with faint ticks, and proceeded on foot, boots padding silently over packed dirt. Silas waited in the gloom of a side street, a hunched figure in a threadbare coat, his face a map of regrets under the pale moon. "Oath brothers," he greeted, voice a rasp honed by years of swallowed truths. His eyes darted, hands trembling as he passed a sketched floor plan, the paper damp with nervous sweat. Harlan's inside, gloating over reports. "I'll trip the outer alarm, 5 minutes tops before they swarm." Marcus clasped his shoulder, the gesture firm, a silent vow exchanged. "You've got courage, Silas. This ends the cycle." The old man nodded, vanishing into the night like smoke, his footsteps fading into the hush. The courthouse loomed, its stone facade scarred by time, windows dark save for a faint glow from the sheriff's office. Marcus and Jax approached the side door, Lena and Tommy covering from the shadows, Ray staying back with eyes on the escape route. The lock yielded to Jax's picks with a soft click, the mechanism's surrender, a small victory in the quiet. Inside, the hallway smelled of polished wood and stale authority, footsteps muffled on threadbare carpet. Heartbeats thrummed loud in Marcus's ears, each step a test of the oath, to pierce corruption without becoming its mirror. They reached the office, door ajar, Harlan's silhouette hunched over papers in the lamplight, oblivious. The safe squatted behind the desk, a hulking iron beast. Jax worked the dial, sweat beading on his brow. The faint whir of tumblers, the only sound breaking the tension. Seconds stretched eternal, the air thick with the weight of what lay inside, proof of families shattered, aggressions veiled as order. A distant siren wailed, Silas's diversion spurring Jax's hands. The safe creaked open, revealing the ledger, a thick tome bound in cracked leather, pages yellowed with secrets. Marcus snatched it, flipping through entries that blurred in the dim, names like ghosts, sums that bought silence, traces of pursuits ending in voids. "Enough," he whispered, tucking it under his jacket, the leather warm against his chest like a beating heart. Alarms blared suddenly, red lights pulsing through the halls like arterial blood. They bolted, Jack slamming the door behind, the crew converging in a fluid rush. Harlan's shout echoed, "Intruders!" Boots pounding in pursuit, but the night swallowed them, the alley a blur of motion. Back on the bikes, engines roaring to life in muffled bursts, they tore from Dust Creek. The ledger, a talisman against the rearview mirror's glow of chasing lights. Wind lashed Marcus's face, carrying the raw scent of freedom and peril intertwined. Elias's scream, a distant echo, fueling the flight. The proof burned in his grasp, a key to unraveling Harlan's web. But the cost loomed, pursuit that tested loyalty's edge. In the rear, Ray's truck kept pace, the boy safe for now, the chosen family a thunder rolling toward dawn's uncertain light. Redemption whispered in the miles, promising justice not in flames, but in the unyielding stand of honor's quiet fire. The engine's roar faded into a tense hush as the convoy crested the final ridge, the first hints of dawn bleeding pink across the eastern sky like a wound slowly healing. Marcus gripped the handlebars of his Harley, the ledger tucked securely in his saddlebag, its weight a tangible anchor, pulling him through the night's frenzy. The wind had shifted, carrying the clean, sharp scent of juniper from the higher ground, mingling with the lingering exhaust that clung to his jacket like a second skin. Behind him, Jax and Tommy flanked in formation, their bikes humming low, while Lena's van and Ray's pickup trailed. Headlights dimmed to slits against the encroaching light. Dust Creek's chaos receded in the rear view, a blur of flashing sirens and Harlan's furious shouts. But the pursuit lingered, a shadow that refused to dissolve with the dark. They veered onto a forgotten logging trail, the path narrowing through dense thickets where branches scraped like warning fingers against the vehicle's sides. Marcus's mind raced, piecing the escape. Silas's diversion had bought them precious minutes, but Harlan's web was vast, deputies radioing ahead like veins pulsing with corrupt blood. The ledger's pages burned in his thoughts, entries detailing shakedowns, Families coerced into silence, traces of pursuits that ended in empty stretches of road, echoes of the device planted under his seat. Elias's scream had sparked this unraveling, a boy's sharp eyes piercing the veil, reminding Marcus that innocence demanded defense, not just survival. The trail opened to a clearing near an old fire watchtower, its rusted frame silhouetted against the paling stars, a relic standing sentinel over the valley. They killed the engines one by one, the sudden quiet amplifying the drip of dew from leaves and the distant call of a waking owl. Ray pulled up last, his face gaunt in the grey light. Elias peering from the passenger window, his small frame silhouetted against the dashboard's glow. The boy dismounted first, boots sinking into the soft earth, clutching his bear as he approached Marcus with tentative steps. "Did we win?" Elias asked, voice barely above the rustle of wind through the pines, his eyes searching the biker's scarred face for truth. Marcus knelt to his level, the cool morning air nipping at his knuckles, the iron oath tattoo flexing like a living promise. "Not yet, kid. But we're closer. That book we took, it's the key, shows what Harlan's done, clear as day." He placed a hand on Elias's shoulder, the touch steady, conveying the loyalty that had pulled this ragtag family together. Ray joined them, nodding gratefully, his posture straightening as if the night's trials had forged something unbreakable in him. "For you, son, all this, for a chance to start clean." Lena emerged from the van, her kit slung over one shoulder, checking Elias with a quick, gentle scan. No fresh shadows, just the resilience of youth bending but not breaking. Jax unfurled the map on the tower's base, the paper crinkling in the breeze, while Tommy scanned the horizon with binoculars, his grey beard catching the first sun rays. "Patrols are scrambling south, Harlan's throwing everything. But we've got a window to the state line. Old contact in Fairhaven, a reporter who owes the promise. She'll run the story, blow it wide." The words hung with moral weight, the crew's voices a low murmur, underscoring the ethical tightrope. Expose without excess, justice through truth, not the barrel of a gun. Lena traced a route with her finger, her expression resolute. "We digitize the ledger first. No losing it to a roadblock, then we ride as one." As the sun crested, bathing the clearing in golden warmth, they huddled in the tower's shadow, the air now scented with sun-warmed pine and the faint, comforting aroma of Lena's instant coffee brewing on a portable flame. Marcus pulled the ledger free, its leather cover cool and worn, pages whispering as Jax photographed each damning line, names of the vanished, sums extracted under threat, patterns of aggression that painted Harlan as a predator in sheriff's clothing. Elias watched, wide-eyed, the glint from that fateful night mirrored in his gaze, a spark of understanding dawning. "You stopped the bad thing. Now you stop the bad man." Tommy ruffled the boy's hair, his laugh a gravelly rumble. "That's the oath, little rider. Stand for what's right, even when it rides hard." Words spread through encrypted channels, the Iron Promises network igniting like embers fanned to flame. Veterans, riders, quiet allies from forgotten chapters stepping forward with safe passages and watchful eyes. By mid-morning they were moving again, the convoy a unified force weaving through canyons where red rock walls rose like ancient guardians. The pursuit thinned, Harlan's reach fraying at the edges, his empire cracking under the weight of impending light. Marcus led, the wind streaming tears from his eyes, not of sorrow, but release, the scars on his soul easing as the miles carried them toward Fairhaven, a town where justice had a voice unbent by corruption. They arrived at dusk, the state line a subtle shift in the air, cooler and laced with the salt of distant seas. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Clara with a notebook ever ready, met them in a nondescript diner, its neon sign buzzing like a hive of truths. Over coffee steaming in mismatched mugs, Marcus handed over the drive, the ledger's secrets now digital arrows aimed at Harlan's heart. "Make it count," he said, voice low, the weight of the oath transferring like a baton in a relay of honor. Clara nodded, her eyes gleaming with the fire of one who'd chased shadows before. This breaks him. Family safe, the racket exposed. Your word's gold. Ray and Elias would stay. New starts promised in a quiet suburb, protection woven from the crew's far-reaching bonds. As the diner door swung shut behind them, Elias turned, hugging Marcus fiercely, the boy's small arms a testament to trust earned in the dark. Come visit, promise? Marcus knelt again, the diner's warm light framing them. Promise. The word sealed it, echoing the vow inked long ago, a legacy of redemption where loss gave way to chosen kin. The crew rode out under a canopy of stars, engines purring in harmony, the road unfolding like a healed scar. Harlan's fall came swift in the days that followed, headlines screaming corruption, deputies scattering like dust in the wind, the ledger's truth a moral thunder that restored balance without a drop of vengeance. Marcus felt the ghosts lighten. The iron promise alive in every mile, a family forged not in birth, but in the stand against the storm. Elias's scream had stopped one explosion, but it ignited a greater fire, one of quiet courage, loyalty's unyielding rumble, carrying them into a dawn where honor endured, promises kept, and the innocent rode free. In the end, justice wasn't a blaze, it was the steady light that guided the lost home.